So
That's Chris Yans calling in.
He yans what he yans. Calling him Yans is not as bad as saying that he looks like a doppelganger of Ted Cruz. That's just one of the most unseriously dumb things I've seen from a quote legitimate news organization.
Who went with that?
Clarion Ledger. And I don't like punching down too much. It's just not my thing, but this is more like kicking anyway.
I can't figure out exactly what he looks like, though, because I was showing Jane a picture of him on Saturday night. I was like, this is the guy State's going to hire. And I pulled up two pictures. I was like, does he look like either of these people? And she said, no.
Because he doesn't.
One of them was Ted Cruz, and she was like, no. And that had nothing to do with the Clarion Ledger. So, I kind of get it. The other was, I feel bad for this, Jerry Falwell Jr.?
Oh, no.
And she was like, no, doesn't look bad. Nope.
Oh, no.
Nope.
Couldn't find a decent person there to make a picture. I see what you're doing, Richard.
If he looks like Ted Cruz, then every older man whose hair is turning from its natural color to gray also looks like Ted Cruz, because that's literally
sometimes has a beard.
That's literally the only comparison. But
crap.
Aside from the stupidity of that being your lead in an article about a coaching hire, it's the fact that you said looks like a Ted Cruz doppelganger, which means he looks like a guy that looks like Ted Cruz.
Which maybe that's exactly what they meant.
But that was the headline. The lead did not say that. So they took out a couple words in the lead.
You'll forgive me for missing that story in particular.
I know.
The story is really putting it generously.
Yeah. Two things on that. I went to the ATM machine earlier today. Because I had to get money
redundant, isn't it?
for my hot water heater.
Yeah.
And when I was at the ATM machine,
the Department of Redundancy Department.
Yeah, and I had to put my PIN number at the ATM machine to get the cash out so I could buy my hot water heater.
Look, Borky, can we please talk some SEC conference sports here?
Yes.
All right, let's get back to this.
I was trying to get it. I was just letting him finish his sentence first. Let's
got to get in there,
SEC
Richard.
conference
You
baseball.
got to want it.
Shall we? Should we go big picture league stuff and then drill down?
I thought we were going to talk more about Jans. I thought that would be we'd go there.
Well, that would also qualify as SEC conference news.
I guess so, yeah. I think it's interesting, if you want to feel good about the Jans hire and you want to feel good about this hiring process altogether, who were the top three guys that I listed, right? Matt McMahon, Todd Golden, Chris Jans. They're all in the SEC. You're going to see all three of them next year.
Golden, Jans, McMahon.
Yeah. All obviously John
that
Cohen.
Would be a name right there.
That would be. Golden, Jans, McMahon. That sounds like Vince McMahon's illegitimate son who's coming to challenge for the World Heavyweight title this weekend.
It does.
Anyway, that said, obviously John Cohen was on the right guys because all three of these guys ended up with plum jobs. McMahon's interesting at LSU. Because you got to feel there's some sanctions coming, so I'm guessing there was some guarantees made in the contract language for him. But kudos to John Cohen. And both of his hires feel like and we're sitting here 2 days into the Chris Jans era, 2 weeks into Sam Purcell, but they feel like they were good hires. They feel like he went out and got a top assistant from an elite program for the women's team and one of the top mid-major coaches in the country for the men's team. That's about all you could hope for at Mississippi State. That's the baseline of what a good hire should look like on paper. Yeah. I think obviously we'll see how it all pans out. You got to watch him coach games first, but I think if you're a Mississippi State fan, you should be very, very excited about Chris Jans going forward.
So 4 of the 5 jobs in the SEC that are open have been filled. 3 mid-majors.
South Carolina.
Yeah, three mid-majors. 3 mid-major coaches that were kind of the top 3 mid-major coaches. Mike White getting the reset, leaving Gainesville and going to Athens, and now South Carolina. We'll wait and see what direction Ray Tanner ultimately goes. I agree with you, Haydad, that you're onto something in that, was John Cohen looking at the right group? Yeah. Yeah, he was. If John Cohen and Scott Strickland and Scott Woodward were kind of all looking in the same group, and those were the three guys, and they get distributed to three jobs that are open at the time. That makes sense. Is this the right way to be going about it when you got to replace it? Do you take a step down, find a guy that's winning, find a guy that's had the magical season, gotten to the tournament, and boom, go forward with it? Or is there a different way that we should be going about the hiring process?
That's a good question. I think it depends on the school. Florida's a school that can go after, to me anyway, a proven Power Five Power Five isn't the right term for basketball. But a coach like that, they could go after basically whoever they wanted to. But they liked Golden, who I thought that's interesting because he's the least proven of this group of three that we're talking about. LSU is a school that could probably go after a proven coach, but at the same time, we don't know what's coming down there on their way from the NCAA, and they have to take that into account. State, Howland is sort of a special circumstance. He was out of the game. State couldn't get a coach like Ben Howland when he was coaching at UCLA. He's not coming from UCLA to Mississippi State. So this is sort of the template for them, is to find the guy who's ascendant, find the guy who's on his way up the coaching ranks. And Jan sort of fits that bill, I think.
Your point about Todd Golden is a good one. So with Matt McMahon, he actually had been at Murray State for a while.
Yeah.
And has had a couple of NCAA tournament runs. And so you're looking at a larger body of work there, and you're going, do you feel like this guy can win at a place that is harder to win than our job? And the answer is yes, because he's proven it. Chris Jans, he had the short stint at Bowling Green that ended unceremoniously, paid his dues, got back into the game in Las Cruces, New Mexico. And what does he do? He wins 4 conference titles in the regular season and 3 tournament titles in 5 years. Is that right?
Would have made the tournament in the COVID canceled year too. Yeah. He was undefeated in conference play.
I think they won. Yeah, I think their conference may have got their conference tournament would have gotten canceled there. So yeah.
Okay. And so he's proven that he can win at a place that is harder to win than Mississippi State. Now, maybe the conference is not as hard, but New Mexico State's a hard job. It's a hard job with limited resources. And so I think that makes a lot of sense. The Todd Golden piece, you're just believing in a guy.
Yeah.
Right? Because he's been a head coach 19, 20, 21, and 22 at San Francisco. They went 22-12 in the 1920 season and finished 5th in the conference. 11-14 in the 2021 season. That was weird. You kind of throw it out because of COVID. And finished 8th in the conference. San Francisco actually finished 4th in their league this season, the West Coast Conference. But they made it to the tournament. They were competitive all season long.
That's a good conference for basketball.
It is. It's a really good conference. That's where St. Mary's plays. That's where Gonzaga plays. San Francisco's good. And it's a good – it's fun to watch, too. That's a conference where you can watch their games late on Friday night, late on Saturday night, and they got full 5,000-seat gyms or 3,000-seat gyms, and it's a pretty high level of basketball. But it does feel like Florida is taking more of a risk here than either LSU or Mississippi State.
And then you have South Carolina, who – lost out on Sean Miller. Bob Ritchie pulls his name out of the running, and it looks like they may have to go with the alum with B.J. Mackey, who is at Wake Forest as an assistant now. But they have been the ones who've struggled in this. It feels like their top guys have all gone elsewhere.
Let's not ignore the irony that Sean Miller was hired by Xavier. I know he coached there before, but still, he was hired by Xavier.
Getting the band back together.
Whose athletic director served on the NCAA Committee on Infractions. That guy hired Sean Miller. I mean, college sports sometimes is such a joke.
Is it a joke or is it awesome?
It's awesome when you ignore the joke part of it, for sure. Okay.
Wasn't that guy the chair of the committee when Ole Miss had its hearing?
That's how I remember.
That's how you knew who he was.
That's how I knew who he was. Yeah.
Well, that guy is. That guy's
Greg
not
Christopher.
strict enough.
That's
in my
exactly
opinion.
right.
That's
Greg
the guy
Christopher.
that cited a thing that happened in 1980 as an example of a pattern. And he hired Sean Miller.
That guy's not strict enough, in my opinion. He needs to be more of a